I think when we tracked my arms the other day, you said my arms grew an inch. I was like, in 6 months, like that's crazy. And certainly some of the other body parts remain the same, which to me means I lost a lot of fat and I probably put on a little muscle as well. Yeah, I've always worked out in my life as a young man, and obviously when you get married, things change, and you get lazy, move to new neighborhoods, so you don't know people, so you stop going to the gym. But lately, I've had to sort of try to take control of my life because I was gaining weight. I'm on blood pressure medication. I was always tired. I was going to the gym before I started with you guys, about 6 months and a little bit before that. And you essentially, I wasn't really following anything. I wasn't really eating any particular thing. I was trying like the carnivore and I had a little success losing some weight, but then it kind of froze. So I knew I had to make a change, closing in on 20 pounds, significant difference. I, I put on a pair of pants the other day and it was literally this much of a gap from my, my stomach to the pants when I pulled them out. I was like, I got to get new clothes, like literally I've got to like buy new pants. I'm actually wearing a pair of shorts right now that, are elastic. So, with the elastic ones, you could kind of get away with them. And even these are like falling off of me now. I'm like, that's amazing. Like I'm happy I got to buy new clothes. I went from a 36-inch waist and I literally went to the Gap the other day and I probably could fit into a 32. They were slightly snug, but I haven't been in a 32 since I'm like in my 20s. So that was significant. You know what? I got to really invest in myself. I've spent so much frivolous money in the past on junk that didn't do anything for me. I'm like, let me put money into myself. That's probably the best money I've ever spent because the results have been great. I see people who look at me and they haven't seen me. I tell them my age and they're like, no way. They think I'm like 10 years younger. And having a full head of hair doesn't hurt for sure. So that's
Yeah.
kind of like how things started off. The structure was great. Um, but at some point, I stalled and I think I reached out to you and you kind of, talked me off the ledge. And I think having that, person to speak to and reach out to is critical because I think a lot of people may start on a program and then they get stuck and they're like, what am I doing? I'm doing everything right. I'm doing my cardio. I'm going above and beyond. I'm doing my weightlifting. I'm putting in an extra day, training. And if you don't really have somebody to say, hey, man, I'm stuck. What do I do? And have somebody, tell you, listen, just stick with the plan. That's part of the process. I may have given up. And I think a lot of people face that problem where they make progress doing something and then they hit a wall and they just don't know what to do and they've got nobody to speak to. So obviously the plan that you guys put ahead and you're going to stay there. You guys helped me put that together by providing a plan, holding me accountable, providing me with the tools where I can track my progress, uh, you know, having a dietary plan. That was one of the big things as well. I figured the working out, I could kind of manage it myself, but you start realizing that, the meals that you eat and, I was nowhere getting as much protein as I needed. I wasn't even close. Even on days where I was like eating chicken and protein, I was probably getting maybe like 50 grams of protein a day. And it just doesn't work. You can work out as much as you want, especially at 58 and you're just not going to see the results. And I mentioned it earlier. Sometimes you have to spend a little money on yourself to really improve your life. I've spent so much frivolous money in the past on junk, things that didn't matter. It was totally worth it. I would certainly do it again, 100%.